If you think you know animals, sit down. You don't. Most of what you know is a collection of garbage handed down by bored parents, scientifically illiterate cartoonists, and that one kid in 3rd grade who swore his uncle fought a bear. We aren't just looking at a handful of fun facts today. We are taking a sledgehammer to the entire library of biological lies. This is the ultimate catalog of human ignorance. We have compiled 125 of the most widespread, ridiculous, and embarrassingly persistent myths you still repeat at dinner parties. By the end of this video, you will question reality, biology, and your own education. 1. You swallow 8 spiders a year in your sleep. Let's kill the most famous internet lie first. This statistic was literally invented to prove how gullible people are, and congratulations, you passed the test. Biologically, this is impossible. To a spider, a sleeping human is not a cozy cave. You are a terrifying, vibrating mountain of flesh emitting carbon, dioxide, and thunderous snoring noises. Spiders use tiny hairs on their legs to sense vibrations to avoid predators. Walking into your open, damp mouth would be like a human voluntarily strolling into the mouth of an active volcano that is also a wind tunnel. Unless you marinate your tongue in fly pheromones before bed, the spiders want nothing to do with you. 2. Goldfish have a 3-second memory. We tell ourselves this lie so we don't feel guilty about keeping a living creature in a tiny glass bowl for its entire miserable life. The truth is, goldfish are surprisingly intelligent. They can be trained to navigate mazes, recognize their owners, and remember solutions to problems for months, not seconds. If a goldfish actually had a 3-second memory, it would never be able to find food or avoid danger. Calling someone a goldfish brain is actually an insult to the fish. They remember what you did. 3. Bulls are enraged by the color red. The image of the matador waving a red cape is iconic, but the bull literally does not care about your color palette. Cattle are dichromatic, they are red-green colorblind. To a bull, that bright red cape looks like a dull, muddy gray. What makes the bull angry isn't the color. It's the annoying man in tight pants waving a piece of fabric in its face. You could wave a neon pink flag or a dirty towel. If you snap it aggressively, the bull will charge. The red is just there to hide the blood from the audience. 4. Lemmings commit mass suicide. This is perhaps the darkest lie Disney ever told. The 1958 documentary White Wilderness famously showed lemmings jumping off a cliff to their deaths. But they didn't jump. The filmmakers, impatient for action, pushed them off the cliff with brooms to get the shot. In reality, lemmings do migrate when populations get high, and sometimes they drown trying to cross rivers, but they do not have a biological suicide pact. We have spent decades calling people lemmings based on a staged snuff film. 5. Bats are blind. Blind as a bat is a phrase that needs to go extinct. Not only can bats see, but many species actually have excellent vision. Fruit bats, for example, don't even use echolocation. They rely entirely on their sharp eyesight and sense of smell to find food at night. Microbats use echolocation in addition to sight to hunt insects with military precision. Saying a bat is blind is like saying a submarine is blind because it uses sonar. It's not blind. It just has a superpower you don't understand. 6. Daddy Longlegs are the most venomous spiders, but their mouths are too small to bite. This is the playground legend that refuses to die. First, Daddy Longlegs usually refers to harvestmen or crane FLIs, neither of which are actually spiders. Harvestmen don't even have venom glands. They are harmless scavengers stumbling around on stilts. If you are talking about the actual fulcid spider, yes, they have venom, but it is weak barely enough to annoy a fruit fly, let alone kill a human. You are safe. Stop screaming. 7. Dogs only see in black and white. We treat dogs like they are living in a vintage TV show. Dogs do see color, just not the full rainbow. Their eyes function similarly to a human with red-green color blindness. They see the world primarily in shades of yellow, blue, and gray. This makes the pet industry's obsession with bright red toys hilarious, because to your dog, that red ball on green grass is just a dark gray blob on a light gray background. If you love your dog, buy blue toys. If you hate your dog, keep buying red ones and watch them struggle. 8 poinsettias are deadly poisonous to pets. Every Christmas, people panic about this festive plant, while you shouldn't feed your cat a salad made of poinsettia leaves because it might give them a mild tummy ache or make them drool. It is not the kiss of death. A 50-pound child would have to eat 500 poinsettia leaves to reach a toxic level. Your pet is in much more danger from the chocolate under the tree or the tinsel they are trying to swallow than the red plant in the corner. 9. A duck's quack doesn't echo. This sounds like physics breaking magic, but it's just acoustic incompetence. A duck's quack absolutely echoes. Sound waves reflect off surfaces regardless of what animal produced them. The issue is that a quack has a long fade out, so the echo blends into the original sound, making it hard for human ears to distinguish the two. If you put a duck in a soundproof recording studio or a massive canyon, it will echo. The universe did not create a special audio loophole just to silence waterfowl. 10. Mother birds will abandon their babies if you touch them. This lie was invented by parents to stop their kids from harassing wildlife. Most birds, with the exception of vultures and kiwis, have a pathetic sense of smell. They cannot smell the human on their baby. Birds are devoted parents who invest massive energy into raising their young. They aren't going to throw a baby in the trash just because a hairless giant poked it. If you put a fallen nestling back in the tree, the mom will just be relieved. 11. Great Wall of China is the only man-made object visible from space. This isn't an animal myth, but it's often paired with animal facts, so we are debunking it. It's a double lie. 1. You cannot see the Great Wall from space with the naked eye. It is too narrow and is the same color as the rocks around it. It's like trying to see a single hair on a rug from a helicopter. 2. You can see plenty of other man-made things like city lights at night, massive highways, and greenhouses. The Great Wall is impressive, but astronauts can't see it. 12. Camels store water in their humps. It makes sense visually. A desert animal carrying a water cooler. But if you sliced open a camel's hump, don't do that. You would find a giant mound of yellow fat. The hump is a fuel tank of calories, allowing them to survive weeks without food. They store the fat in one lump to keep the rest of their body fat-free, which helps them release heat in the scorching sun. They do store water, but they do it in their blood and elastic organs, not in a gelatinous backpack. 13. Ostriches bury their heads in the sand. Think about the mechanics of this. An oxygen-breathing animal burying its face in dirt while leaving its delicious, massive body exposed to lions? That is evolutionary suicide. This myth comes from an optical illusion when they tend to eggs in ground nests. If an ostrich is actually threatened, it runs at 40 miles per hour or kicks the predator. An ostrich kick can kill a lion. They don't hide. They choose violence. 14. Touching a toad gives you warts. Medieval peasants needed to blame their skin issues on something, so they blamed the bumpy frog. Warts are caused by the human papillomavirus HPV, which is unique to humans. You catch warts from shaking hands with other dirty humans, not from toads. The bumps on a toad are parotid glands that secrete toxins to stop things from eating them, not magic buttons that transmit dermatology problems. 15. Sharks don't get cancer. This isn't just a lie. It's a lie that got millions of sharks killed. Shark cartilage pills were sold as a miracle cure based on this myth. Piranhas will strip you to the bone in seconds. Hollywood loves a frenzy of boiling water and skeletons. But this reputation is largely the fault of Teddy Roosevelt. Yes, the president. He saw a staged feeding event in Brazil where starved fish were released onto a cow. In reality, piranhas are nervous scavengers that mostly eat insects, plants, and dead fish. You could swim in a river full of them. People do it every day in the Amazon without losing a single toe. Unless you are already dead or bleeding profusely, they generally have zero interest in snacking on a live human. They are nervous schooling fish, not aquatic chainsaws. 17. Turkeys are so dumb they drown looking at rain. The story goes that turkeys are so mesmerized by falling water that they stare at the sky with their beaks open until they fill up like water balloons and die. This is aggressively false. If a turkey is looking up during a storm, it is keeping an eye on trees for predators or tilting its head due to a genetic neurological condition called tetanic torticollis. Birds have been dealing with rain for millions of years. If a light drizzle was a mass extinction event for them, Thanksgiving dinner would look very different. 18. Sloths are just lazy. We judge them for sleeping 20 hours a day, but calling them lazy is a fundamental misunderstanding of thermodynamics. Sloths are not napping because they don't want a job. They are operating on a caloric budget that would make a dieting supermodel faint. Their diet consists of toxic, low-energy leaves that provide almost no nutrition and take a month to digest. If they moved any faster, they would burn more energy than they consume and die of starvation. They aren't lazy. They are the ultimate survivalists, hacking the system by doing absolutely nothing while you burn out by age 30. 19. Opossums hang by their tails to sleep. You have seen the cartoons where a row of opossums hang upside down from a branch like furry bats. Physics says no. While their tails are prehensile and great for climbing or carrying leaves, an adult opossum is way too heavy to hang by its tail for more than a few seconds. If they tried to sleep like that, their spinal ligaments would scream and they'd plummet to the ground with a concussion. Only tiny babies can hang briefly, and even they don't sleep that way. If you see an opossum hanging upside down, it's not napping, it's holding on for dear life. 20. Mice are obsessed with cheese. If you are baiting a mousetrap with a block of cheddar, you are basing your pest control strategy on Tom and Jerry rather than biology. Mice have a very strong sense of smell, and heavily processed cheese is often too pungent for them. They evolved to eat seeds, grains, and fruits. They are essentially carb-loading sugar addicts. You are far more likely to catch a mouse using peanut butter, chocolate, or a piece of dried fruit. If mice actually loved cheese as much as pop culture claims, they would have evolved into lactose-tolerant gourmets instead of skittish pantry raiders. 21. That high-pitched whistling sound isn't a cry for mercy. It is simply trapped air expanding and escaping through gaps in their shell as pressure builds from the heat. Ironically, veterinarians often see more severe injuries from cats falling from second-story windows than from sixth-story ones. The higher fall gives them time to spread out like a furry parachute to slow their descent. Thinking your cat is a magical gymnast that can survive any drop is a dangerous assumption that usually ends with a very expensive vet bill. If they actually unhinged their jaws, the lower jaw would detach and flop around uselessly, which is terrible for wrestling prey. Instead, their jaws are connected by incredibly stretchy elastic ligaments. For the snake, it is just stretching into yoga pants before a big dinner. We treat cockroaches like indestructible monsters, but in terms of radiation resistance, they are actually pathetic wimps compared to other insects. While they can handle more radiation than a human, a nuclear blast would still fry them quite easily. The true rulers of the radioactive wasteland would be flower beetles and tiny fruit flies, which can withstand massive doses that would turn a cockroach into dust. But in a genuine apocalypse, they will be dying right alongside us, leaving the fruit flies to inherit the earth. A rhino's horn is made of solid bone. Poachers have slaughtered thousands of these majestic tanks under the delusion that their horns hold magical medicinal properties. But the reality is tragic and stupid. A rhino horn is not bone. Consuming rhino horn powder to cure a disease is chemically identical to chewing on your own fingernail clippings. We are driving a species to extinction for the equivalent of a pretentious, useless salon treatment. Bees always die after they sting you. If it isn't a honeybee, it is not a martyr. It is a repeat offender with a weapon. 27. Rabbits love eating carrots. Bugs Bunny is responsible for a global dental health crisis among domestic rabbits. In cartoons, a carrot is a healthy snack. In reality, for a rabbit, it is the nutritional equivalent of a human eating a Snickers bar for every meal. Dolphins save drowning humans because they are nice. We love the story of the benevolent dolphin pushing a struggling swimmer to shore, but we ignore the darker reality of dolphin behavior. A dog's mouth is cleaner than a human's. This is the kind of lie people tell themselves right after letting a golden retriever lick the inside of their mouth. It is absolutely disgusting and false. Dogs use their tongues for everything: eating, drinking, cleaning their own nether regions, and investigating the poop of other animals. Their mouths are a bacterial mosh pit of species-specific germs. Just because those germs don't typically make humans sick doesn't mean they are clean. It just means they are incompatible with your biology. If you wouldn't kiss a toilet seat, you probably shouldn't believe that the animal eating trash has a sterile mouth. 32. Lions are the kings of the jungle. This title is catchy, dramatic, and geographically incompetent. Lions do not live in the jungle. They live in the savanna and open grasslands. If you dropped a lion into a dense tropical jungle, it would be confused, miserable, and likely out of a job. The true king of the jungle is the tiger, which actually lives in dense vegetation and is significantly heavier and more muscular than a lion. We have spent centuries giving the crown to the wrong cat simply because British explorers didn't bother to check a map before writing poetry about how majestic these animals look. 33. Pit bulls have locking jaws. This is a fear-mongering myth that treats a dog breed like a piece of industrial machinery. There is no physical mechanism in a pit bull's skull or any dog's skull that allows the jaws to lock in place. Their jaw structure is anatomically identical to that of a Chihuahua or a poodle. What they do have is determination and strong cheek muscles. When they bite and hold, it isn't because of a magical bone latch. It is because they are really stubborn and don't want to let go. Telling people their jaws lock is like saying a bodybuilder has locking arms just because they are strong. 34. Cow tipping is a real rural pastime. This is a legend invented by bored country kids to trick city slickers into standing in manure. Physically, tipping a cow is nearly impossible for a human to do alone. A cow weighs roughly 1,500 pounds and stands on four widely spaced legs, creating a center of gravity that is extremely stable. Furthermore, cows do not sleep standing up. They lie down to sleep like sensible creatures. If you sneak up on a standing cow in the dark, it is awake and it will not fall over. It will likely panic, kick you, and trample your ego into the mud. 35. Wolves howl at the moon. It is the classic image on every cheap t-shirt found in a truck stop. A lone wolf silhouetted against a full moon. In reality, wolves have zero interest in astronomy. They are howling to communicate with their pack, define territory, or locate lost members. They point their heads up simply because it projects the sound further, allowing the noise to carry over miles of terrain. The moon just happens to be there because wolves are nocturnal hunters. If you shouted at the sky every night to tell your friends where you were, people would assume you were yelling at streetlights. 36. Earwigs crawl into ears to lay eggs. This nightmare fuel is entirely based on an old superstition and a very unfortunate name. While an earwig could technically wander into your ear if you sleep on a damp basement floor, they have no biological desire to be there. Your ear canal is full of wax and lacks the rotting vegetation they actually want to eat. The insect was originally called earwing because their hind wings look somewhat like human ears, but language evolved, and now we have a global phobia. They are not drilling into your brain. They just want to hide under a damp rock and be left alone. 37. Snakes are slimy to the touch. For some reason, people look at a snake and assume it feels like a mucus-covered slug. This assumption is genuinely offensive to reptiles. Snakes are covered in scales made of keratin, the same dry material as your fingernails. Their skin is cool, smooth, and completely dry unless they just took a swim. The slime perception likely comes from their shiny appearance or the fact that amphibians, like frogs, actually are slimy. If you touch a snake, it feels like high-quality leather, not a wet nose. Ironically, if you are nervous holding one, you're sweaty. Hands are significantly slimmer than the snake. 38. Peeing on a jellyfish sting relieves pain. We can thank the TV show Friends for convincing an entire generation to urinate on each other at the beach. In reality, urine can actually cause the jellyfish's nematocist stinging cells to fire even more venom into your skin, making the pain significantly worse. Jellyfish stings are triggered by changes in salt balance, and because urine contains fresh water and waste products, it aggravates the wound. The best treatment is vinegar or plain seawater. If you decide to pee on your friend's leg, you are not being a hero. You are just a weirdo making a bad situation grosser. 39. Elephants are the only animals that can't jump. This factoid circulates on social media constantly to make elephants seem unique, but it is false by omission. While it is true that elephants can't jump mostly because sending for tons of mammal into the air would shatter their legs upon landing, they are far from the only ones. Rhinos, hippos, and sloths are also firmly grounded. In fact, there are plenty of animals that can't jump, but we only shame the elephant for it. It isn't a biological quirk. It is simple physics. When you weigh as much as a school bus, gravity is not a suggestion. It is a law. 40. Bears hibernate through the entire winter. We use the word hibernate to describe what bears do, but biologically, they are cheating. True hibernators, like ground squirrels, drop their body temperature too near freezing and enter a coma-like state where you could literally juggle them and they wouldn't wake up. Bears, however, enter a state called torpor. Their body temperature only drops a few degrees and they can wake up instantly if threatened. This means you cannot safely poke a sleeping bear in January assuming it is comatose. It is just napping, and it will be very grumpy, very hungry, and very capable of ending you. 41. Birds will explode if they eat dry rice. This myth has ruined thousands of wedding exits. The idea is that dry rice expands in a bird's stomach, causing them to burst. This is biologically ridiculous. Birds have incredibly strong digestive acids and a crop designed to break down hard seeds and grains. Many birds eat dry seeds in the wild every single day without turning into feathered grenades. The rumor was likely started by church caretakers who were tired of sweeping up pounds of rice after weddings. Throwing rice is slippery and messy, but it won't murder the local pigeon population. You can throw it guilt-free. 42. Goats will eat absolutely anything, including tin cans. Cartoons depict goats chomping on tires and metal cans, but goats are actually picky eaters. They are browsers, meaning they sample a wide variety of plants. The myth comes from their curiosity. A goat will investigate a tin can by nibbling the paper label off to taste the glue, which is often starch-based and tasty to them. They aren't eating the metal. They are just peeling the wrapper. If a goat actually ate a tin can, it would die of internal bleeding very quickly. They are curious scavengers, not biological trash compactors capable of digesting steel. 43. Bats love to get tangled in human hair. This is a vanity-based myth. We assume that because bats fly erratically, they are aiming for our heads. In reality, bat echolocation is incredibly precise. They can detect a single strand of hair, or a mosquito in total darkness. A massive human head is the easiest thing in the world for them to avoid. If a bat swoops near you, it is likely catching the mosquitoes that are hovering around your body heat. They aren't trying to nest in your hair. They are using you as bait to get a free dinner. You should be thanking them. 44. Koalas are a type of bear. Calling them koala bears is a victory for bad taxonomy. Koalas are marsupials related to kangaroos and wombats, not bears. Bears have placentas. Koalas have pouches. While we are roasting koalas, let's add that they are also incredibly unintelligent. They have smooth brains, meaning they lack the folding that allows for higher cognitive function. If you put eucalyptus leaves on a plate in front of a koala, it won't recognize it as food because it isn't attached to a branch. They are not bears. They are just very cute, very dumb marsupials with chlamydia. 45. Black panthers are a separate species. If you go to the zoo looking for a black panther species sign, you won't find one. A black panther is not a distinct animal. It is simply a melanistic color variant of either a leopard in Africa or Asia or a jaguar in the Americas. It's just a cat with a goth paint job. If you look closely at their fur in the sunlight, you can actually still see the spots hidden underneath the dark pigment. Biologically, they are identical to their spotted siblings. Marvel movies are great, but they didn't teach you proper zoology. 46. Centipedes always have 100 legs. The name literally means 100 feet, but nature hates round numbers. No centipede has exactly 100 legs. Centipedes always have an odd number of leg pairs, meaning they can have 98 legs 49 pairs or 102 legs 51 pairs. But never exactly 100. Depending on the species, they can have anywhere from 32 over 300 legs. The name is just a lazy approximation by ancient people who didn't want to sit there and count wiggling legs. So if you count exactly 100, you have discovered a new species or you just miscounted. 47. Elephants are terrified of mice. Cartoons show 6-ton elephants jumping onto stools to avoid a tiny mouse. This myth was tested, and while elephants might be startled by sudden movements, they do not have an innate fear of rodents. Elephants have poor eyesight, so if something small scampers by their feet, they might back up out of caution, just as you would if a rock suddenly started moving. But they aren't afraid of the mouse itself. In fact, in zoos, mice are often found running all over elephant hay without the elephant scaring at all. The fear is of the surprise, not the species. 48. Fish will only grow to the size of their tank. This is a cruel lie used to justify keeping goldfish in bowls. Fish do not magically self-regulate their growth to fit a room. They stop growing because they are stunted by poor water quality and muscle atrophy. In a small tank, waste builds up, causing high nitrates and ammonia that burn the fish and inhibit growth hormones. A stunted fish often suffers from internal organ failure because their organs keep trying to grow even if their body doesn't. It's not an adaptation. It's a slow, painful sickness. Buy a bigger tank. 49. Crocodiles cry to lure prey. The phrase crocodile tears means faking sadness, but the biology behind it is purely mechanical. crocodiles do produce tears, but not because they feel guilty about eating a zebra. When they eat, they often hiss and huff, forcing air through their sinuses, which stimulates their lacrimal glands to empty. Additionally, their third eyelid moves across the eye to protect it while biting, which wipes fluid across the surface. The tears are just lubrication for violence, not an emotional display. They are crying because they are eating, not because they are sad about it. 50. Polar bears cover their black noses to hide in snow. This is a story told by Arctic explorers that sounds clever but has never been observed by scientists. Polar bears are apex predators. They don't need to be ninjas. When they hunt seals, they rely on patience and smell, remaining perfectly still for hours. Covering their nose with a paw would actually be counterproductive because it would block their sense of smell, their most important tool, and make them walk on 3 legs, which is awkward. A polar bear relies on the fact that it is a giant white death machine, not on hiding its one black pixel. 51. Flamingo knees bend backward. This is an optical illusion that has confused tourists for generations. When you see a flamingo bending its knee backward, you are actually looking at its ankle. A flamingo's real knee is tucked high up inside its feathers, close to the body, and it bends forward exactly like yours does. If a human tried to replicate a flamingo's stance, you wouldn't be bending your knee backward. You would be balancing on your toes with your heel in the air. 52. If you drop a frog in boiling water, it won't jump out. The boiling frog metaphor is used by politicians and business gurus everywhere, but the science behind it is barbaric. The 19th century experiment that proved this involved frogs that had been surgically lobotomized. Of course, a brain-damaged frog didn't jump. It had no brain. If you drop a healthy frog into slowly heating water, it will notice the temperature rising and jump out immediately because it doesn't want to die. The only thing this myth proves is that 19th century scientists were cruel and that modern motivational speakers do in fact check their metaphors. 53. You should run zigzag to escape a crocodile. This advice is a great way to get eaten slowly instead of quickly. Crocodiles and alligators are ambush predators that launch forward in a straight line with explosive speed. However, they are not great at turning. If you run in a zigzag, you are actually slowing yourself down and staying in their kill zone longer. The best survival strategy is to run in a straight line as fast as you possibly can away from the water. Humans are excellent endurance runners. Reptiles are sprinters. Don't do geometry. Just run. 54. Pigs sweat like a pig. This idiom is an insult to porcine hygiene. Pigs actually have very few functional sweat glands. This is exactly why they wallow in mud. Since they cannot sweat to cool down like humans or horses, they cover themselves in wet mud to regulate their body temperature and protect their skin from the sun. The mud acts as an evaporative cooler and sunscreen. If a human is sweating like a pig, they are scientifically barely sweating at all. If you want to be accurate, you should say you are sweating like a horse, which is far grosser. 55. Bread is good for ducks. Feeding bread to ducks at the park is a wholesome tradition that is actively destroying them. Bread is junk food high in calories but devoid of nutrients. A diet of white bread causes a condition called angel wing, where the bird's wings grow deformed and stick out laterally, making them unable to fly. This is a death sentence in the wild. Furthermore, uneaten bread rots in the water, causing algae blooms that kill fish. If you want to feed ducks, bring frozen peas, corn, or cut grapes. Stop throwing Wonder Bread into the pond. 56. Whales spout water out of their blowholes. Cartoons depict whales shooting a fountain of ocean water into the sky like a decorative park feature. In reality, the blowhole is a nose, not a water pump. Whales are exhaling warm air from their lungs. When this hot air hits the cold ocean atmosphere, it condenses instantly into mist, just like seeing your breath on a winter day. The spray also contains mucus, snot, and a bit of water resting on top of the hole. So, if you get close enough to feel the spray, you aren't getting splashed. You are getting covered in whale snot. 57. Snake charmers use music to hypnotize snakes. The image of a cobra swaying to the sound of a flute is iconic, but the snake literally cannot hear the music. Snakes lack external ears and cannot perceive the airborne sound waves of the flute. The cobra isn't dancing to the beat. It is in a defensive stance, tracking the movement of the instrument. The charmer waves the flute back and forth, and the snake follows the motion to prepare for a strike. The animal is stressed, terrified, and focused on the threat, not enjoying a private concert. It is animal abuse disguised as entertainment. 58. Komodo dragons. Kill with bacteria-filled mouths. For decades, scientists believed Komodo dragons were just non-hygienic beasts whose mouths were so dirty that their bite caused fatal sepsis. While their mouths are gross, recent research found that they actually possess venom glands. They aren't killing prey with bad breath and gingivitis. They are delivering a complex cocktail of toxins that prevent blood clotting and induce shock. They are venomous lizards, essentially land sharks with a poison delivery system. Giving the credit to bacteria was just a failure of science to find the actual glands hidden in their jaws. 59. Cats should drink a saucer of milk. Tom and Jerry convinced the world that milk is the ultimate treat for a cat. In reality, most adult cats are lactose intolerant. Once they are weaned off their mother's milk as kittens, they stop producing the enzyme lactase, which is needed to digest dairy. Giving a saucer of cow's milk to an adult cat will usually result in severe stomach cramps, gas, and explosive diarrhea. It isn't a treat. It's a recipe for a ruined carpet. If you want to treat your cat, give them meat, leave the milk for the baby cows. 60. Sharks must swim constantly or they die. This is only true for obligate tram ventilators like great whites and mako sharks, which need to push water over their gills to breathe. However, many shark species like nurse sharks, angel sharks, and wobbegongs possess spiracles, special openings behind the eyes that pump water over their gills while they remain perfectly still. These sharks spend most of their lives napping on the ocean floor. The idea that every shark is a sleepless, perpetual motion-killing machine is a myth. Many of them are just underwater couch potatoes waiting for a snack to swim by. 61. Cheetahs are the fastest animals on Earth. The cheetah is the fastest land animal, clocking in at around 70 miles per hour, but in the grand scheme of the animal kingdom, it is getting dusted. The peregrine falcon is the undisputed king of speed. When it goes into a hunting dive stoop, it can reach speeds of over 240 miles per hour. That is 3 times faster than a cheetah and faster than a Formula One car. Even the Brazilian free-tailed bat can fly horizontally at 100 miles per hour. The cheetah is only fast if you ignore everything with wings. Gravity assists or not, the bird wins. 62. Bats are flying rodents. The German word for bat is Fledermaus, fluttering mouse, and the French is Chauve-souris, bald mouse, so language has set us up for failure. Bats are not rodents. They belong to their own order called Chiroptera. Genetically, they are actually more closely related to horses, pangolins, and even humans than they are to mice or rats. They do not gnaw on things, they don't infest pantries, and they have entirely different reproductive cycles. Calling a bat a flying rat is like calling a human a hairless monkey. It's a lazy comparison that insults millions of years of distinct evolution. Betta fish live in tiny puddles in the wild. Pet stores sell betta fish in cups the size of a thimble, claiming they live in stagnant mud puddles in nature. This justifies keeping them in tiny vases. In the wild, bettas live in rice paddies and stream basins. These are shallow, yes, but they stretch for miles. A rice paddy is a massive volume of water with complex filtration and ecosystems. Keeping a betta in a tiny bowl causes ammonia poisoning and depression. Just because they can survive in low oxygen doesn't mean they want to live in a cup of their own waste. 64. Vultures are bald to stick their heads in carcasses. The common logic is that feathers would get messy with blood, so vultures evolved bald heads for hygiene. While that sounds plausible, it is wrong. Many vultures with full sets of feathers also eat carrion without issues. The primary reason for the bald head is thermoregulation. Vultures can rapidly lose or conserve heat through their bare skin by changing their posture. It is a biological radiator cap. The cleanliness factor is just a bonus side effect. They are bald because they get hot, not just because they are messy eaters. 65. Zebras are white with black stripes. This is the chicken or the egg question of the safari. Because their bellies are white, it looks like white is the base color. However, embryological evidence shows that zebra embryos start out with completely black skin. The white stripes appear later as the production of melanin pigment is inhibited in specific areas. Essentially, a zebra is a black horse that ran out of ink in specific patterns. So, if you shaved a zebra, please don't, it would be almost entirely black underneath the fur. They are goth horses with white highlights. 66. Giraffes are completely mute. For a long time, scientists thought giraffes made no sound because they don't have the lung capacity to push air through their 6-foot necks to vibrate vocal cords. This is false. Giraffes are not silent. They just talk at a frequency you can't hear. They communicate using infrasound low-frequency humming that travels long distances, especially at night. They also snort, hiss, and whistle. Just because they aren't roaring like lions doesn't mean they aren't gossiping about you. They are just doing it on a private, low-frequency channel. 67. A toucan's beak is heavy. Looking at a toucan, you assume that massive orange banana on its face must be incredibly heavy, requiring massive neck muscles to hold up. In reality, the beak is a marvel of biological engineering. It is made of keratin-like fingernails, but the interior is a foam-like structure of air pockets and thin, bone struts. It is incredibly light, almost like styrofoam. If the beak were solid bone, the bird would tip over immediately. The beak is actually used for heat regulation, dumping body heat like a radiator, not as a heavy weapon. 68. Hippo sweat is red blood. If you see a hippo in the sun, it looks like it is sweating blood. This gave rise to myths about them bleeding through their pores. It is actually a secretion called blood sweat, but it contains neither blood nor sweat. It is a secretion of hyposucric acid. This red fluid acts as a powerful sunscreen to protect their hairless skin from UV rays and also serves as a high-grade antibiotic to prevent infection in the dirty water they live in. It is a natural, red-tinted medical ointment that they secrete automatically. 69. Possums play dead when scared. We think of the opossum as a great actor, deciding to flop over and stick its stung out to fool a dog. But playing implies it is a conscious choice. It is not. When an opossum is terrified, its brain overloads and it enters a state of involuntary catatonia, similar to fainting. It essentially has a seizure. Its heart rate drops, it stiffens up, and it emits a foul-smelling green fluid from its anal glands to smell like a corpse. They don't choose to do this. They literally pass out from fear and wake up confused an hour later. 70. Houseflies vomit on food before eating it. This is one of the few gross myths that is actually partially true, but worse than you think. Flies don't have teeth. They have a sponge for a mouth. They cannot chew solid food. So to eat your sandwich, they regurgitate digestive enzymes onto the bread to dissolve it into a sandwich smoothie, which they then slurp up. So yes, if a fly lands on your food, it has likely spit on it. However, the myth is that they do it instantly. If a fly lands for a split second, you are fine. If it stays for a while, cut that piece off. 71. A blue whale can swallow a car. Because the blue whale is the largest animal to ever exist, we assume its throat is a massive cavern capable of swallowing Jonah, Pinocchio, or a Volkswagen. In reality, a blue whale's throat is about the size of a grapefruit or a small beach ball. If you tried to swim into its mouth, you would get stuck in the esophagus and the whale would likely choke. They evolved to eat krill, tiny shrimp-like creatures, not large mammals. So, despite being the size of a Boeing 737, the blue whale cannot physically swallow a human, let alone a sedan. 72. Magpies love stealing shiny objects. Rossini's famous opera The Thieving Magpie ruined this bird's reputation. We think of them as jewel thieves, but scientific studies show the exact opposite. Magpies are actually neophobic, meaning they are terrified of new, strange objects placed in their territory. In experiments, piles of shiny screws and foil repelled the birds, while they happily ate from piles of mat food. If you find a shiny ring in a nest, it wasn't a heist. It was likely an accident. Magpies are smart, but they aren't trying to fence your grandmother's jewelry for cash. 73. Beavers use their tails as mud trowels. Cartoons show beavers slapping mud onto their dams with their flat tails like little furry construction workers using masonry tools. This is adorable but false. Beavers carry mud and stones using their front paws and chins. The tail serves 3 actual purposes: a rudder for swimming, a fat storage depot for winter, and a warning system to slap the water surface when danger approaches. If a beaver used its tail as a shovel, it would damage the delicate vertebrae inside. They are master engineers, but they use their hands, not their butts, to build. 74. Raccoons wash their food for hygiene. We see raccoons dunking food in water and assume they are germaphobes cleaning their dinner. This behavior, called dousing, has nothing to do with cleanliness. Raccoons have incredibly sensitive nerve endings in their front paws, and water increases this tactile sensitivity. By wetting their paws, they can see the food with their hands, identifying texture and edibility before eating. They aren't washing off dirt. They are essentially putting on reading glasses for their fingers. If they dunk a piece of cake in a puddle, they aren't cleaning it. They are just analyzing the texture. 75 insects fly to lights because they love the glow. Moths zapping themselves on your porch light aren't attracted to the beauty of the bulb. They are confused pilots suffering from a navigation failure. Nocturnal insects evolved to navigate by keeping the moon at a constant angle to their flight path. Artificial lights are so bright and close that they overwhelm this system, causing the insect to spiral endlessly in an attempt to correct its angle relative to the moon. They aren't suicidal party animals. They are trapped in a dizzying loop of sensory overload that usually ends in death by exhaustion or heat. 76. Horses sleep standing up. This is a half-truth that leads to sleep-deprived horses. While horses do have a stay apparatus, a system of ligaments that locks their legs so they can doze without falling, they cannot achieve REM deep sleep while standing. To truly rest and dream, a horse must lie flat on the ground. If a horse is forced to stand for weeks without lying down, it will eventually collapse from sleep deprivation. Standing is for light napping and scanning for predators. Lying down is for actual recovery. If you never see your horse lie down, it is stressed, not efficient. 77. Falling coconuts kill more people than sharks. This statistic is quoted constantly to make sharks seem harmless, but the number is a fabrication. The claim originated from a 1984 travel insurance press release that twisted a single study about falling coconut injuries in Papua New Guinea. There is no global medical database tracking death by coconut. While being hit by a 5-pound fruit falling from 80 feet will certainly ruin your day or crack your skull, the idea that there is a global epidemic of coconut murders is a statistical lie designed to sell shark diving tours. 78. Ants work 24/7 and never sleep. Ants look like the busiest creatures on Earth, but they are actually the world champions of power napping. A worker ant will take approximately 250 naps a day, each lasting just over a minute. This allows them to function around the clock by staggering their rest periods. The queen ant, however, sleeps significantly more, up to 9 hours a day, which might explain why she lives for years while the workers burn out in months. They aren't sleepless robots. They are just masters of the micro-break. 79. Fainting goats pass out from fear. We laugh at videos of goats stiffening up and falling over when someone opens an umbrella, but they aren't fainting. They are fully conscious the entire time. These goats have a hereditary genetic condition called myotonia congenita. When they are startled, their muscles tense up and fail to relax immediately. It is a temporary muscular paralysis, not a loss of consciousness. Imagine if every time you got scared, your legs turned to stone but you were still wide awake to feel your face hit the dirt. It isn't a quirky personality trait. It's a muscle disorder. 80. Octopuses have 8 tentacles. If you want to annoy a marine biologist, call an octopus's limbs tentacles. Biologically, they are arms. The difference is that tentacles like those on a squid only have suckers at the very tip, whereas arms have suckers running the entire length. Octopuses have 8 arms and 0 tentacles. Squids have 8 arms and 2 tentacles. It sounds like a pedantic distinction, but considering these arms contain 2/3 of the octopus's neurons and can essentially think for themselves, we should probably give them the respect of using the correct name. 81. Cows have 4 stomachs. This myth is taught in elementary schools everywhere, but it is anatomically incorrect. A cow has 1 stomach, but it is divided into 4 distinct compartments: the rumen, reticulum, omasum, and abomasum. Think of it like a house with 4 rooms rather than 4 separate houses. This complex system allows them to ferment tough grass and turn it into protein. If they actually had 4 separate stomachs, they would need 4 separate esophagi and a digestive system that looked like a plumbing disaster. 1 stomach, 4 chambers, lots of gas. 82. Penguins fall over if they look up at planes. During the Falklands War, a rumor spread that British pilots would buzz over penguin colonies, causing thousands of birds to look up and topple over backward like dominoes. This is hilarious but false. Penguins are incredibly agile and have a low center of gravity. If they look up, they simply adjust their stance. Scientists actually spent time flying helicopters over penguins to test this. Your tax dollars at work, and not a single bird fell over. They might scatter due to the noise, but they aren't losing a battle against gravity. 83. Mosquitoes prefer sweet blood. If you get bitten more than your friends, you've probably been told. You have sweet blood due to eating sugar. In reality, mosquitoes don't care about your diet. They are attracted to carbon dioxide, how heavily you breathe, body heat, lactic acid, and your genetic blood type. Type O is often preferred. They also love the specific mix of bacteria on your skin, which is why some people's ankle sweat is an aphrodisiac to them. It isn't the candy bar you ate. It's your genetics and your smell that makes you delicious. 84. Birds migrate because they get cold. We assume birds fly south because they hate freezing temperatures. While some do, most birds are well equipped for the cold, possessing down feathers that are superior to any human coat. The real reason they migrate is food. In winter, insects die off, water freezes over hiding fish, and nectar disappears. If you provided a steady supply of high-calorie food and heated water, many migratory birds would happily stay in the snow. They aren't escaping the weather. They are escaping starvation. 85. Human blood is blue until it hits oxygen. People look at the blue veins in their wrists and assume deoxygenated blood is blue. This is false. Human blood is always red. It is bright red when oxygenated and a dark, deep crimson when deoxygenated. It never turns blue. The blue color of veins is an optical illusion caused by how light penetrates the skin and scatters. Blue light doesn't penetrate as deep as red light, so it is reflected back to your eye. If you bleed blue, you are either a horseshoe crab or a Vulcan, and you should see a doctor immediately. 86. Toads and frogs are different scientific groups. We treat them like separate categories. Frogs are smooth and wet. Toads are dry and bumpy, but scientifically, toad is a meaningless distinction. All toads are technically frogs, part of the order Anura. The word toad is just a common nickname we give to frogs that happen to have warty skin and shorter legs. There is no genetic line in the sand that separates them. Saying that's not a frog, it's a toad is like saying that's not a dog, it's a poodle, it's still a frog. 87. You can tell a ladybug's age by its spots. This is a charming childhood myth that suggests ladybugs live for decades. In reality, the number of spots indicates the species of the ladybug, not its age in years. For example, a 7-spotted ladybug is born with 7 spots and dies with 7 spots. Considering that the average lifespan of a ladybug is only about 1 year, a beetle with 14 spots would be a biological immortal if this myth were true. The spots are just a warning sign to predators that they taste terrible, not a birthday candle count. 88. Wasps serve no purpose and are just evil. Everyone hates wasps, but if we eradicated them, the ecosystem would collapse. Wasps are voracious predators that control the populations of crop-destroying pests like caterpillars and aphids. Without wasps, our agriculture would be overrun by bugs. They are also significant pollinators. Figs, for example, are almost entirely dependent on tiny wasps to exist. They might be the jerks of the insect world, but they are the only thing standing between us and a biblical plague of crop-eating insects. 89. Crickets chirp by rubbing their legs together. Disney's Jiminy Cricket has misled you. If a cricket rubbed its legs together, it wouldn't make a sound. It would just look like it was warming up for a run. Male crickets produce their signature chirp by rubbing their wings together. One wing has a serrated file and the other has a scraper. It works exactly like a violin bow moving across a string. The legs are strictly for jumping. The sound is a mating call, meaning that relaxing summer evening noise is actually thousands of desperate bugs screaming for a girlfriend. 90. Goldfish shouldn't live in bowls. Wait, this isn't a myth. Correct. The myth is that they can. We are reinforcing this. Putting a goldfish in a bowl is the myth. The myth is that goldfish are low maintenance. They are actually high-waste producers that require heavy filtration and high oxygen levels, things a bowl cannot provide. A goldfish in a bowl will suffocate in its own ammonia. The myth here is the products sold in pet stores. If you have a goldfish in a bowl, you have been lied to by a salesman. Move it to a tank or accept that you are a bad landlord. 91. A T-Rex cannot see you if you stand still. Jurassic Park taught an entire generation that the T-Rex's vision is based on movement. This is a fatal lie. The Tyrannosaurus Rex had binocular vision, meaning its eyes faced forward like an eagle's, giving it incredible depth perception. Its vision was likely 13 times better than a human's. If you stood perfectly still in front of a T-Rex, you wouldn't be invisible. You would just be a very convenient stationary snack. The movie made that up to create tension. In reality, the dinosaur would see you, smell you, and eat you before you finished holding your breath. 92. Cutting an earthworm in half creates 2 worms. This is the kind of playground science that results in a lot of mutilated invertebrates for no reason. If you cut a worm in half, you do not get two friends. You usually get two dead pieces of meat. At best, if you cut it in the right spot, the front half containing the vital organs might survive and regenerate a tail, but the back half will always die. Earthworms are not magical hydras that multiply through violence. Thinking you can double the population by slicing them up is like thinking you can get two cars by sawing a sit end down the middle. 93. Porcupines cannot launch projectiles across the room, no matter how angry they get. When a predator foolishly bites or touches a porcupine, the barbs snag instantly and the quills pull out of the rodent's skin, leaving the attacker looking like a pincushion. '94. St. Bernards carry whiskey to rescue hikers. The image of a giant dog with a small wooden keg of brandy around its neck is iconic, but medically disastrous. Alcohol is a vasodilator, meaning it causes blood vessels to expand near the skin. If a freezing hypothermia victim drinks alcohol, they will feel a warm flush, but their body temperature will actually drop faster, likely killing them. Real rescue dogs carried milk, food, or nothing at all. Giving booze to a freezing man is just aggressive malpractice. 95. Killer whales are whales. They are technically orcas, and they are not whales. They are the largest members of the dolphin family. The original name given to them by ancient sailors was whale killer because they were observed hunting large whales in packs. Over time, the words got flipped, confusing everyone. They share far more DNA with the bottlenose dolphin performing tricks at SeaWorld than they do with a blue whale. So when you look at Shamu, you are looking at a giant steroid-fueled dolphin, not a whale. 96. Touching a butterfly's wings kills it instantly. We tell children this to keep their sticky hands off delicate insects. But it is an exaggeration. A butterfly's wings are covered in thousands of tiny scales, the dust that comes off on your finger. While losing these scales is not good for them and can affect their aerodynamics, a gentle touch will not cause them to drop dead on the spot. They shed scales naturally throughout their lives. However, their wings are fragile and easily torn, which is fatal. So, the don't touch rule is good advice, but the instant death part is a lie. Rattlesnakes always rattle before striking. Hikers rely on the rattle as a polite warning system, but trusting it can get you bitten. Rattlesnakes rely on camouflage as their first line of defense. They will often remain perfectly silent, hoping you walk past without seeing them. If you step on one or surprise it, it will bite immediately without making a sound. The rattle is a last resort stress signal, not a mandatory safety protocol. Furthermore, some populations of rattlesnakes are evolving to rattle less because humans kill the ones that make noise, creating a generation of silent assassins. 98. Science says bumblebees shouldn't be able to fly. This is a popular story about how science doesn't know everything. The myth claims that according to the laws of aviation, a bee's wings are too small for its fat body. This story originates from a hasty calculation made by a French entomologist in the 1930s using fixed wing airplane physics. But bees aren't airplanes. They don't glide. They flap their wings to create mini hurricanes vortices that generate lift. Physics explains bumblebee flight perfectly well. The only thing this myth proves is that you shouldn't apply airplane math to a helicopter insect. 99. A cat purring means it is happy. While a purring cat is often a content cat, purring is not just a smile. It is also a self-soothing mechanism. The frequency of the purr between 25 and 150 Hz has been shown to promote tissue regeneration and bone healing. It is essentially a biological vibration therapy session. So if your cat is purring at the vet, it isn't happy to be getting a shot. It is trying to calm itself down and heal its own stress. Context matters more than the sound. 100. Sharks can smell a drop of blood from miles away. We imagine sharks as supernatural bloodhounds, but their nose has limits. While their sense of smell is excellent, the statistic is often exaggerated. A shark can detect a drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, which is impressive, but that scent doesn't travel miles instantly. The smell has to physically disperse through the water and reach the shark's nose. If the current is moving the wrong way, the shark won't smell anything. They are good hunters, but they don't have magical long-range sensors that defy the laws of fluid dynamics. 101. A cold, wet nose means a dog is healthy. Pet owners panic when their dog has a dry nose, assuming they are sick. This is a diagnostic myth. A dog's nose temperature and moisture levels fluctuate throughout the day based on the weather, hydration, and whether they just licked it. A perfectly healthy dog can have a warm, dry nose after a nap, and a very sick dog with a fever can still have a wet nose. The moisture is just mucus and saliva, not a medical gauge. If you want to know if your dog is sick, check their energy and appetite, not their snout. 102. Chameleons change color to blend in. Cartoons have convinced us that if you place a chameleon on plaid, it turns plaid. But chameleons are not biological spies. They are mood rings with legs. Their color changes are primarily a response to mood, temperature, and light, or to communicate with other lizards. A dark color might mean they are trying to absorb heat, while bright colors are often a sign of aggression or mating. If a chameleon turns bright red, it isn't trying to hide in a tomato patch. It is telling you to back off. They are showing off, not hiding out. 103. The alpha wolf dominates the pack. We love the idea of the alpha male to justify toxic behavior, but the science is flawed. The researcher who coined the term alpha wolf spent the rest of his life trying to retract it. He originally studied unrelated wolves forced together in captivity. In the wild, a wolf pack is just a family: mom, dad, and the kids. The alpha is literally just the father. So when someone brags about being an alpha male, they are essentially bragging about being a responsible dad who makes sure the kids eat dinner. 104. 1 human year equals 7 dog years. We cling to this math because it is simple, but biology refuses to work on a multiplication table. If this were true, humans would be able to reproduce at age 7. Dogs age rapidly in their first 2 years. A 1-year-old dog is essentially a rebellious teenager, physically 15, not a 7-year-old child. Furthermore, breeds age differently. A Great Dane is a senior citizen by age 6, while a Chihuahua is still planning its retirement party at 15. Reducing a complex life cycle to a single digit is just lazy math. 105. House FLIs live for only 24 hours. This myth gives us false hope that the annoying buzzing in the kitchen will resolve itself by tomorrow. Unfortunately, an adult housefly can live for up to a month. The 24-hour statistic likely refers to the mayfly, a different insect that actually has a tragic blink and you miss it existence. House FLIs, however, have plenty of time to vomit on your food, lay hundreds of eggs, and dodge your swatter. If they only lived for a day, they wouldn't be the global pests that they are. You are stuck with them for weeks. 106. Owls are the wisest birds. We put them in graduation caps in every cartoon, but the reality is embarrassing. Owls are actually exceptionally stupid compared to other birds like crows or parrots. Their eyes are so massive that there is barely any room left in their skulls for a brain, essentially trading IQ points for night vision. They are fantastic biological murder drones, but they can't solve puzzles. A crow remembers faces and uses tools. An owl struggles to learn tasks that a pigeon masters in minutes. Do not ask the owl for advice. Ask the crow. 107. Dogs only eat grass when they are sick. When a dog starts grazing like a cow, owners assume it's trying to vomit. While grass can tickle the throat and induce vomiting, many dogs eat it simply because they like the taste or crave the fiber. Studies show that a large percentage of dogs eat grass regularly without being ill and without vomiting afterward. It is an evolutionary leftover from their omnivorous ancestors who ate stomach contents of prey. Unless they are eating the whole lawn, they probably aren't sick. They are just enjoying a salad. 108. Bears cannot run downhill. This is an old survival tip that will get you killed. The logic was that a bear's front legs are shorter than its hind legs, making it tumble if it runs down a slope. This is false. Bears are absolute muscular units that can sprint up, down, and across slopes faster than an Olympic sprinter. They are sure-footed and gravity-assisted. If you see a bear, do not rely on geometry to save you. It will catch you on the hill, and it will catch you in the valley. 109. Artificial vanilla flavoring comes from beaver butts. This is a viral factoid that is technically true but practically false. Castoreum is a secretion from a beaver's anal glands that smells like vanilla, and it can be used as a flavor. However, milking a beaver's butt is difficult and expensive. Because of this, castoreum is exceedingly rare and used only in high-end perfumes, not in your $3 box of cookies. The vanilla in your pantry is vanillin, synthesized from wood pulp or petrochemicals. You are eating fake wood, not beaver butt. Relax. 110. Baby snakes are more dangerous than adults. The myth claims babies can't control their venom and dump it all at once. While baby snakes might be more irritable, their venom glands are tiny. An adult snake carries a massive payload of venom and has the muscular control to deliver a dry bite or a lethal dose depending on the threat. A bite from a full-grown rattlesnake pumps a significantly larger volume of toxin into you than a bite from a neonate. Neither is fun, but the adult is the one that sends you to the ICU faster. 111. Donkeys are stubborn. We mistake caution for stubbornness. Horses are flight animals. If they get scared, they run. Donkeys are fight or flight animals with a strong sense of self-preservation. If a donkey stops and refuses to move, it isn't being a jerk. It has likely perceived a danger you haven't noticed, or it feels unsafe. They stop to analyze the situation. You cannot beat or force a donkey into doing something it thinks will kill it. That isn't stubbornness. That is intelligence. They are just smarter than the person pulling the rope. 112. All spiders spin webs. We see a spider and look for the web, but half the spider families out there are homeless wanderers. Jumping spiders, wolf spiders, and huntsman spiders do not spin webs to catch prey. They are active hunters who run down their victims or ambush them like tiny tigers. They use silk for safety lines or egg sacs, but they don't sit around waiting for dinner to fly into a net. If you see a spider running across your floor, it isn't lost. It's on patrol. 113. Humans evolved from chimpanzees. Creationists and evolutionists fight over this, but the premise is wrong. Humans did not evolve from chimps. We share a common ancestor with chimps. Think of it like a family tree. The chimpanzee is your cousin, not your grandfather. About 6 to 7 million years ago, a mysterious ape species split into two lineages. One line stayed in the trees and became chimps. The other walked into the grasslands and became us. We are related, but we are not their descendants. We are just the bald, anxious cousins. 114. Cats steal baby's breath. This is an old wives' tale that resulted in many family cats being thrown out. The myth suggests cats are jealous and suck the air out of a sleeping infant's mouth. Physically, a cat cannot create a vacuum seal on a baby. The grain of truth is that cats love heat and the smell of milk. They might curl up near a warm baby's face, which is a suffocation risk due to their body weight, not because they are demonic breath vampires. It's an accident, not malice. 115. Hyenas are just scavengers. The Lion King painted hyenas as cowardly beggars who wait for lions to kill. In reality, spotted hyenas are some of the most successful hunters in Africa. They kill 70-90 of their own food. In fact, field studies show that lions steal food from hyenas far more often than hyenas steal from lions. They hunt in coordinated packs with terrifying endurance, running prey to exhaustion. They don't need scraps. They are the ones setting the table. 116. Craniophilies are giant mosquitoes that eat mosquitoes. You see a giant, clumsy bug that looks like a mosquito on steroids and think, good, a mosquito eater. We call them mosquito hawks, but it's a lie. Craniophilies are harmless vegetarians. As adults, many don't eat at all, and those that do only sip nectar. They possess no mouthparts to kill mosquitoes and no stinger to hurt you. They are just big, goofy bugs trying to find a mate before they die. They are completely useless for pest control. 117. Gorillas are aggressive monsters. King Kong and video games depict gorillas as chest-beating raggers constantly fighting. In the wild, gorillas are actually gentle giants. They are vegetarians who spend most of their day sitting around eating celery and farting. Aggression is rare and usually a last resort to protect the family. They are far more introverted and peaceful than chimpanzees, which are the true psychopaths of the primate world. A gorilla just wants to eat his salad in peace. 118. Koalas get drunk on eucalyptus leaves. People think koalas are slow because they are stoned on eucalyptus soil. They aren't drunk. They are malnourished. Eucalyptus is toxic, tough, and incredibly low in nutrition. Koalas have evolved to digest it, but it takes massive amounts of energy. They sleep 20 hours a day because they literally don't have the caloric budget to move. Being a koala isn't a non-stop party. It's a life of extreme starvation and sleeping to avoid dying of exhaustion. 119. Seagulls will explode if fed Alka-Seltzer. This is a cruel urban legend often spread by bored teenagers. The theory is that birds can't burp, so the gas builds up until they pop. This is false. Birds can regurgitate food with ease. It's how they feed their chicks, so burping up gas is not a problem. If you feed a seagull Alka-Seltzer, it will just have a stomachache, foam at the mouth, and probably throw up on your shoes. It won't explode, but you will still be a jerk for poisoning a bird. 120. Sharks actively hunt humans. We think we are on the menu, but we are actually terrible food. Sharks prefer high-fat blubber seals to power their massive bodies. Humans are too bony and lack the caloric density a shark needs. Most shark attacks are cases of mistaken identity in murky water. The shark takes a test bite, realizes you are a gross, bony human, and usually leaves. Unfortunately, a test bite from a great white is often fatal. They don't want to eat you. They just accidentally killed you while checking the label. 121. Camels spit at people. If you annoy a camel, you will get hit with a foul-smelling sludge, but it isn't spit. Camels regurgitate the contents of their stomach, a mix of half-digested food and green by land projectile vomited at you. It is warm, acidic, and smells like rotting grass. Spitting sounds almost polite compared to the reality of being covered in stomach acid. It is a chemical weapon designed to ruin your day, and it works. 122. Animals can predict earthquakes. There are endless stories of dogs barking or snakes leaving holes before a quake. While animals don't have psychic powers, they do have better senses. Earthquakes release P waves, primary waves that travel faster than the destructive S waves. Animals may feel these subtle vibrations seconds or minutes before the shaking starts. They aren't predicting the future. They are just feeling the first ripple that you are too numb to notice. They are reacting to the present. You are just lagging behind. 123. Tarantulas are deadly to humans. Movies treat tarantulas like grenades with legs. While they are large and hairy, their venom is surprisingly weak, usually no worse than a bee sting. The real danger comes from the urticating hairs on their abdomen. When threatened, they kick these barbed hairs into the air. If inhaled or stuck in your eyes, they cause agonizing itching and blindness. A tarantula won't kill you with a bite, but it will make you wish you were dead by throwing itching powder in your eyes. 124. Monkeys peel bananas from the bottom. The internet loves to claim humans open bananas wrong and we should open them from the bottom like monkeys. The truth is, wild monkeys rarely eat the yellow Cavendish. Bananas we buy in supermarkets, those are man-made clones. Monkeys eat wild bananas, which are hard and green, and they open them however they can, biting the middle, smashing them, or peeling from the side. They don't have a standardized protocol. Open your banana however you want. You don't need validation from a macaque. 125. Humans are not animals. This is the ultimate myth, born of arrogance. We build skyscrapers and write poetry, so we pretend we have transcended biology. But scientifically, you are a mammal. You are a placental vertebrate with hair, milk glands, and a neocortex. You are subject to the same laws of genetics, hunger, and mortality as the raccoon in your trash. Denying our animal nature doesn't make us special. It just makes us the only species delusional enough to think we are separate from the system that keeps us alive. That was 125 lies demolished. If you made it this far, your worldview should be sufficiently shattered. Let me know in the comments. Which of these myths did you embarrassingly believe until today? And which animal do you now respect way less? Subscribe for more truths that hurt your feelings. I'm done.